So, Mr. McDonald, they got Ransom and those guys got the announcement on the sports, and
We're now live.
We're live? Okay.
Yeah, I think we're live. Okay. Hopefully, Kevin and Paul will be able to join us for the policy committee meeting. Tonight, we're going to talk mostly about changes to our sexual harassment policies. And we will also go over one other change, and I'll do that first. So policy number 1120, school district records. We will update that to reflect our current records retention schedule, which was adopted in September, and that's LGS 1. I also do realize that I have to update other policies that might reference our old retention schedule, such as the student records policy 5500. So I'll bring those forward at another meeting. I'll have to do a search and see wherever that might be referenced to do all those changes. So that's number 1120, school district records. The current sexual harassment policy number 0110 is being updated due to a change in state law, and I think specifically that's the human rights law, and they want to make changes to employees. So what has happened with number 0110, the current policy will simply become an introductory statement, and then we will have two new policies, 0110.1, which will be specifically geared towards students, and number 0110.2, which will be towards employees. And the gist of the changes are generally the language, and this is all as recommended by the NYSSBA Policy Services due to the changes in the law. So the main change in the policy relating to employees is that the legal standard of what constitutes harassment has changed in the workplace per the human rights law. The conduct no longer needs to be considered severe to be prohibited harassment. Instead, it could be somewhat of a lower level as long as the victim perceives that to be harassment. Other changes relate to employee training, a translation, an expanded translation of materials in an employee's primary language, and also changing shall to a stronger word such as will or must or other appropriate language. And the student policy 0110.1 is developed because there has to be two separate policies. Most of the original language has been retained, some places in both policies. Some places they are separated out depending on the audience, whether it's for employees or students. And again, they're changing the language shall to stronger verbiage. So those are the policies. So we're now going to have three sexual harassment policies, 0110, and then the two sub policies geared towards students or employees. And we will also have changes to exhibits. The current sexual harassment exhibit will eventually be declared obsolete because we have a new employee exhibit, which is 0110.2E, and it's been modified using a Department of Labor example that's geared for schools, and that's what NYSSBA is recommending that we use. And the one for students, the exhibit or complaint form that will be used for students will be our current DASA exhibit 0115-E. And that is a harassment or bullying complaint form. And that's going to expand a little bit to include references to sexual harassment. And I think that's it on the exhibits. And then, of course, our regulations will also change. And again, our current regulation will become obsolete upon adoption of the new regulations. So the student regulation details guidelines to assist in determining whether alleged behavior constitutes sexual harassment. And it is also specifically geared to be used with the DASA exhibit. The employee regulation not only focuses on employees, but it also expands to include non-employees such as a vendor or a contractor or a consultant. And again, the main changes coincide with the change to the state human rights law. Also updating training, it'll detail out training and providing material in an employee's primary language. And again, all of those documents change any place where it says shall to either will or other language. I think that is really it. So if you don't have any specific questions, I mean, these are all pretty straightforward. They have to do with just changes in the law, and they're all recommended by NYSBA. So unless you have a specific question.
The only one I have is the vendors. Do the vendors have a sign-off procedure?
I would imagine that is in the regulation, and I would have to look specifically. I could get that answer for you for Tuesday's meeting.
That's fine. I just want to make sure I'd like to make sure they have some kind of acknowledgement form, because, you know, a vendor's not necessarily under our direct supervision. So
Right.
you just want an acknowledgement on that, probably.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll find that out. So I think Dr. McDonald is going to review our drafted review schedule that we had developed quite a while ago. And he'll talk about what he thinks about that.
So, Graydon, it's just us with in Corey. Where do you recall where you left off with this process? I mean, was this reviewed and discussed and kind of a direction that we wanted to go in? Because if not, we'll pick it up, because we can put this into place and then pick up those other months and put them in the, you know, just slide it down and then continue it through so that we get it covered in the two-year term still.
Yeah, we really just got to the point of finalizing, so we really didn't have a schedule set yet. We just wanted to bring, if there were proactive hot topics that might be coming our way, say a graduation, use that for an example. We would try to review that, any policies that had pertaining to graduation, you know, a month or two prior, so that they were current. So the board had a currency going on. With the sexual harassment changes, obviously those can be renewed now, but we really hadn't established a schedule yet, but we were trying to envision a rotating basis, like either quarterly or as the need arises, to be proactive, pull out those policies and dust them off and send them around so everybody stays current on that 2-year loop.
Sure. And of course, with having as many as we have to do quarterly, you'd have to do like 100 of them in a quarter.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I'm sure that's why Larry set it up. It makes complete sense to set it up and spread it out. I think it would make sense, especially at this point, if we're going to do it, to start from the beginning, to start from the zeros, and then work our way, because then we're starting from the philosophy and the board goal, you know, and working our way down. So, I mean, we can take this on a draft form, bring it into we can bring it into second meeting, or actually we can even bring it into discussion next week from me to the board or from policy out of this meeting notes next week, and have it be not in the draft form it is now, but redo it, move them down, shift them down, show what it could look like over the next 2 years, you know, remainder of this year and all of next year, and lay that out for consideration and review, if that's your desire.
I mean, I think if there's some mechanism to keep us kind of current, or at least, I don't know if we need to go through every single one of them, read every policy and go through hundreds a quarter. That doesn't make any sense because it's not going to stick and people most likely aren't going to retain them. So maybe the best idea is to, at your discretion or at the policy committee's discretion, just pick the ones that are pertinent per time of year and maybe go through those. Or if a
Okay.
topic comes up, maybe we review those, and keep it a little more limited base. I think the original thought process is we would just keep going through them and keep them fresh, and everybody would know what they're doing and operate under those. But I don't think it's realistic if we're going to do a couple hundred a quarter.
Well, I agree. I think this is going to be a daunting task, and although breezing through them and just acknowledging what ones they are, unless you're putting it in front of the board and expecting the board members to review these policies for the meeting to keep them fresh in their mind. And even that's an awful lot to ask. 20
Yeah,
policies.
that was our thought process, is to make sure that everybody understood the policies real well and had a rotating basis. But I think we're going to have to scale that back. I do. So I think under discussion, let's talk about it under discussion, and bring it to everybody's attention. Say, here was what the draft would look like. I don't want you wasting time on the draft, but here's what it would look like. Here's how many policies we'd have to go through quarterly. And does that make sense? Or do you like option B, where we take hot topics or something to be proactive and run those forward so that we're more familiar with the higher use policies, on that basis, at your discretion? I think option B may be a more realistic track.
And the thing of it is we get continual regulation change. We're going to have to bring them out of cycle of monthly anyway, like we did these for consideration, like we did with the last month where we had to do the move forward with the data security. So
Right.
we're going to have those moments regardless of what we do. The one thing about this might look a lot different. This is a 1 year. And if we take a 2-year look and we can go through each section, we could take a look at what the bigger topics are that we want to make sure are fresh in the different categories of them, main topics, and have those fresh, and then kind of lay it out over the 2-year time period. It might look a little bit different too. Let us give it some thought. We'll have a discussion next week, and Corey and I will kind of discuss this a little bit more from these points. And I appreciate it coming in. I have was a document to go on. So this discussion was very helpful for me.
Well, we
And-
went through, and
Go ahead.
Corey going through the whole entire policy book and the time frame that she did, and the adoption process we did, they were all current to the policy. But we were trying to keep up with that momentum and say, this is great, let's keep going. But at the end of the day, it's not realistic, and you're going to burn people out. So
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder, as far as the review process, if we're talking about making sure that we don't get behind again, and that we're keeping them updated and fresh and things of that nature. One, making sure that we have a policy service who keeps those changes in front of us, law firm that keeps the changes in front of us, and that we have a procedure, as we do with our policy committee, that when they come in and when we have those updates come in, we're playing catch up right now as we did, right, Corey, with the ones
Right.
coming in, that when they come in, we're flying them. And we come up with a system that way too. When the NISBA policy service sends an update, that update comes, and then we immediately move, and we have a process that way as well. And then we just hit those big topics every year, different times of the year, to bring to the forefront of the board to say, this would be a good idea. Here it's August, coming in September. Here are some major policies that make sure that we're reviewing to keep fresh, much like you've said. So
Yeah.
that's the other way to look at it. Okay.
sounds good.
And may I just say that I think as far as bringing policies forward to the board, we have a little more wiggle room, because our policy review policy simply states that the committee needs to review the manual every 2 years.
Right.
Doesn't talk about the board, but I know that's very important. That was always important to the committee.
Yeah, okay. Very good. That's helpful. So we'll do some work on it. We can discuss it. We'll review it and discuss it next week coming out of this, and we'll go from there. That's all we got.
Okay,
Great.
thank you. Have a good night.
Yep.
Thanks,
So
everybody.
Corey,
Good work.
you ending the meeting or ending the stream?
I'm ending the meeting,
Okay.
unless you would like to talk to me.
Nope. Have a very good Thanksgiving, both of you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, have a great Thanksgiving.